Gentlemen, just to ask you, how many of you are attending Stockton Con for the first time? Well, welcome to Stockton Con. Welcome to Stockton for the or Stockton Con for the first time. We've been doing this 15 years, so really appreciate you guys coming out. And obviously, the rest of you have been here before, so really appreciate you coming back year over year over year. And Kyle, this is, I think, your first time here at Stockton Con, right?
It is my first year, yeah.
Well, how has it been for you so far?
It's been amazing. I wasn't expecting an arena that's 2 floors and so many people dressed up, putting all that effort in. You guys have seen them too. Yeah, it's pretty cool to see everyone come together.
And when you do these different cons, you see characters that you have been yourself performed in. How cool is that to kind of see, hey, wait, I played that guy?
It is pretty neat to see. Yeah, I feel like I should give them a lead or something. Yeah, because sometimes they really dial in the costume to make it look like so authentic, and it's really cool to see the effort that goes into it.
How has there been a costume that you've seen over the different cons that you're like, wow, that's a really nice job?
Yeah, I mean it's hard to say like one in particular because there are so many that people put like so much effort into, and I've experienced, sorry for my words, but sweating my rear off. So like I feel the pain when they're walking around the Comic-Con. Granted, it is pretty cool in here, but yeah, it takes a lot to not only create the costume, but also to wear it around and navigate your way through all these people and all that stuff. So I guess both sides of it too, which is pretty cool.
And I gotta think it's also kind of neat to see, as we have, see Andrew Nelson walk in here, the Emperor of Darkness.
Fashionably late.
Well, of course, but you know what? We were having a nice conversation, but if we're going to bring Vader in, so there you go.
What are you talking about?
So we're talking a little Star Wars, and the first question I will ask both of you, because you have been in the costume for multiple hours of the day.
Oh gosh. Yes.
What is the best way to survive being in one of those costumes multiple hours of the day?
Staying hydrated.
Stay hydrated, absolutely.
And then recently, I would say they've developed like these little fan things that have like rechargeable, kind of like drill type batteries. And so there's always women from wardrobe cruising around, or men, and making sure you're cool. So you want to keep eyes on them and give them the old wave every time they say cut.
Wow, I never had that. No fans, nothing like that. I even asked them, can you, like on the mask, can you like drill a little hole by the corner of the eye to let some steam out? No, it never happened. Yeah. So,
you got some fans here though, which is good.
For me, yeah, you're right though. It's like definitely have to hydrate. I know there's certain situations where it's sort of indelicate, but I didn't have to use the facilities because I just sweated it all out.
Yeah,
but
for sure. Yeah.
I was going to ask that part too. Is the costumes have to be a little hard to take off if you need to use the facilities as well?
Oh yeah,
it's a process for sure.
Yeah,
yeah.
I would have to take the entire Vader costume off. There's no escape hatch. You just have to take the whole thing off.
So you always eat a light breakfast.
Yeah, very much a light breakfast.
And of course, Andrew, talking to you years past, is how quickly you were able to take that off at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, because it takes my costume was 17 pieces. If you include the lightsaber hanging on the belt, 17 pieces to put it on. You put it on very, very slowly because you want to make sure that everything's in the right place, and the chest box is in the right spot and all that, and there's no fingerprints on the helmet or anything that would be picked up by the camera. And so it'd take about 45 minutes to get into the costume, but at the end of the day, it would take about 5 minutes to get out because you don't care what it looks like at that point. If you have to turn it inside out, just get me out of here because it's blistering hot. So.
Same with you, Kyle?
Yeah, I wouldn't say as many pieces, but definitely as lengthy of time, just because it is very intricate. It's very,
How awkward was it? What was your visibility, and how awkward was it in your costume?
My visibility was so low, and the hardest part was when we're getting like tossed around doing stunt stuff. Like you kind of have an eye for where you're gonna land. Like when you're walking, it's kind of easy just to point and go because you're gonna get there. But like doing stunt stuff, you don't really know where you're gonna land, how you're gonna land. So you don't even know if you're still upside down or not. Sometimes it's just things happen so quickly when you have no visibility. It's pretty wild.
And then it's like, back to one, let's go again.
Yeah. It's like, it's like I'm so dizzy from 2 seconds ago.
And Andrew, I did pull off a quote from 2007, so it wasn't as long ago as I thought it was. But in the Modesto,
is this an embarrassing quote, or is this?
Oh no, this is actually a good quote from you.
Okay, good.
One of the feature stories I found on you from the Modesto Bee.
Sure.
So you basically said, George Lucas, like Disney, had the ability to look at the entertainment industry and see what was missing.
Yeah.
You guys have been a part of an iconic franchise. How important is that to American culture? How important is that to you guys being a part of that?
Wow, that's a good question. I think it's been extremely important to not just American culture, but just culture all around the world. Star Wars, is not exclusive to the U.S. It's global, and I've traveled around both acting and performing, but also doing conventions and signings around the world, and the appreciation and the love that all of you guys and everything share with us. It's like, I would go to conventions as a kid, as a teenager. I spent many years on that side of the table before I was ever invited to be sitting on this side of the table with a stack of photos and a handful of Sharpies, and I never forget that. So I appreciate that when I go to different conventions and I hear the feedback from the fans. So I know it's really powerful. I was in Colorado Springs a couple years ago, and one of the charities that I raise money for when I do signings like this is the Starlight Children's Foundation. And there was a woman that came to see me at this store, and that I was doing a signing at, and she had her 2 kids with her that were older teens, and she said, I just want to let you know that my daughter went through 4 years of cancer treatment. She's in full remission now, but the only thing that kept us going was Star Wars and the Starlight Children's Foundation. I held it together until they left the store, and I went back behind the scenes and cried like a baby. It's just that's the impact that this thing has and can still have.
Totally. I would say the same thing, as well as I see a lot of younger generations watching the new stuff, and you can tell the parents have had the children or their children watch the stuff that was from when they were a kid. So it's really cool to see, the parents bring their children into their past childhood, and then it just emerge like the story of Star Wars and this whole fantasy, and it's really cool to see the generations come together and fan out over it and understand, like a kid that's 10 years old today understands what was going on like decades ago. So I think that part of it is really cool to see it kind of like bring people together in the sense of that.
Yeah, definitely.
And Kyle, talking about your career, you start, and I think I got this right, that you started as kind of more of a stunts. You were a stunt man first, and then you sort of developed into, acting. What did you take from the stunt world that you kind of, built into your acting career?
So, basically my story is I started acting on one movie in particular, and then they said, hey, you're pretty physical. Would you be willing to jump on a cable and get yanked around next week? And I was like, well, I guess. And I was like, that's kind of more my speed than just doing simple things as far as like acting goes, movement wise. Like there's some like, I don't know, I guess like effort and like you had to practice, I guess, everything what you're doing. So it was really cool. And also to get coached by certain people. And so then, after I did that, it was kind of, there's a lot of little people in the industry, but not a lot of them have the physical ability. So every time there was like a little person or a character that required a little person to do something like super physical, they would just like call. And that's actually how I got the call for Star Wars. I was actually on a American Horror Story in New Orleans, and the stunt coordinator on Mandalorian season 1, episode 1, was like, hey man, we've got these characters, I can't really tell you, they're kind of like aliens. I was like, all right. And then he's like, just fly back, I'll have you send in an NDA and I'll fill you in. But there was
You had no clue.
I had no clue, and it was so vague.
So often.
It was so vague, and he's like, just trust me. We've been on this, we've done this before. And this guy that I'm referring to works on like bigger shows, so I knew it had to be something big. But I was like also wanting to know what it was. I'm like, come on, just tell me. No one's listening. And so, anyways, I flew back, and it ended up being like some Jawas getting killed and yanked around, and it was really cool because I was playing one in particular, and then they'd have me change my outfit, and they'd say, all right, you're gonna go over there, and Mando's gonna shoot you, and you're gonna go flying back. I was like, all right. That's kind of cool. So it just kept on going on and on and on, playing all these different characters.
Doubling all of them then at that point.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah. Every time there was like a creature that fit my stature, they're like, "You want to jump in the suit?" And then Wardrobe would reach out and they say, "Hey, we've got something written in the script like 2 months from now. Do you want to do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Nice.
Recently, I can't say too much, but I was basically playing like a female character, and it was very obvious it was a female character. And that was the first time I've ever done that. And I was just like, kind of at first I was like, this is kind of weird, but I was like, no, that's all right. But it was cool.
Yeah.
And I was reading, one thing about you, you really like the wire work where they kind of like, yank you and you go flying,
Yeah,
different directions.
it's definitely an adrenaline rush. It's kind of like a roller coaster in a weird way, but
Well, and
Bungee jump too? Like, it sounds like a
yeah.
Well, and also, too, and both of you guys also have, I'm not going to say side jobs, but also other ways to make income. Kyle, for you, SV Karts is your company and your love of power sports.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
So I guess like rewinding to the beginning, in college I started a motorsports business. So it was like motorcycles, jet skis, snowmobiles on the East Coast. And I was at an expo in Anaheim, California for new product. And someone from Disney was like, "Hey, do you want to be in a movie?" And I was like, "No, not really." And I thought it was like kind of BS, too good to be true, typical like LA thing. They took my info, and they called me a couple weeks later, and they say, "Hey, we want you for this new movie. It's called Oz the Great and Powerful." And it was Mila Kunis, James Franco, like Michelle Williams, like all these A-list actors. And I was like, all right, that'd be kind of cool. So I flew out for 3 weeks, and that's when the stunt coordinators there were like, "Hey, you seem pretty physical and like have the ability to do certain things. Would you want to," kind of speaking on different sides of the table, "jump on this side of the table and get yanked around?" I was like, "Oh, that'd be kind of cool." So we did that. And then after the movie wrapped, or actually the stunts turned my 3 weeks into 2.5 months. So it was a really cool duration, a really fun time. I got to meet a lot of people who I still consider friends to this day. And not only actors, but also all those behind the scenes, hustle and bustle. And so I moved to LA to continue. And then when I was on Star Wars about 5 years ago, I was looking at all the golf carts going back and forth on Manhattan Beach Studios. And I was like, I wonder where they're getting all these golf carts from. And fast forward to the story is basically I started connecting the dots between studios and golf cart manufacturers. And I was almost like a little broker. And yeah, and then after a while, I was like, you know what? I kind of want to open a dealership to the public because it would open more doors and not just do commercial golf cart sales. And that's what I ended up doing. So I have a golf cart dealership now that's doing really well, and it's a lot of fun, and it allows us to really be submerged in our community and then still be able to go play on the bigger productions.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm also picturing, as I'm looking straight at Andrew here, of Vader on a watercraft.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Totally. Keep him cool. That's for sure.
Oh, sure.
And now we have a lot of people here in the audience. Any questions for anyone here in the front row?
Yeah. For both of you guys, was Star Wars a part of your guys' life, either growing up when you guys were younger? And a non-Star Wars question, why is Rocky and Bullwinkle not as much of a cult classic as I think it should be?
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, he's talking about the film from, what was it, 2000? Yeah, 2000. Yeah, 99. Yeah. I don't know. It was such a fun film to work on. I worked on the visual effects for it at Industrial Light and Magic, and it's some of the most
cool.
difficult. Thank you. Yeah, it was a great project to work on. Some of the more difficult shots that I've ever done as a visual effects artist were on that film. Yeah, I was a Star Wars fan right away. I was when I first saw the original Star Wars, I was like, I think just 6 days shy of my 15th birthday. Yeah, let's see, was that right? Yeah. Yeah, so I was almost 15. And I stood in line. It was in San Francisco at the Coronet Theater, which is gone now. It was such a beautiful theater. But stood in line for 2 hours just to get a ticket, then stand in an equally long line because the film had been out for 3 weeks already. So and buzz had already gotten out. This was the movie to see. So the lines were huge. So I stood in line for 2 hours to get a ticket, then another 2 hours to get into the theater. And I don't know how it happened. I'm going to say divine intervention here, but I think I got the very best seat in the theater. And that opening shot where the Rebel blockade runner flies right over your head, followed by that massive Star Destroyer. I just looked up at the screen and thought, oh my gosh, I want to do that for a living. But of course there wasn't anywhere to go to learn how to do that for a living because these guys were just making it up as they went along. This is all new stuff. But yeah, I was a Star Wars fan. I had all the bubblegum cards and I had the action figures and stuff like that. And I had the posters on my wall. And the funny thing is, it's like I went to conventions and I saw Peter Mayhew, Chewbacca at these conventions, had him sign my autograph book, which is funny, flash forward a couple decades later, and Peter's became one of my very dear friends, and we were traveling together, and we were doing productions together and things like that. So you never know where life's going to take you. But yeah, it's people say oh, Star Wars changed my life. It literally changed my life. It literally changed my life. But I was a huge Star Wars fan, of course. Still love Star Wars. So.
I would say I definitely, going back to my comment, like watching with my dad kind of thing. So we watch it as children and follow it along, and yeah, it was really cool to be able to have the opportunity to jump on set because immediately the first thing I thought was when I got off set the first day, it was how excited to tell my dad, like, hey, all those things that we've watched, now I'm going to be part of the new chapter of it.
I did the same thing with my dad.
Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah.
Other questions in the audience? Yeah.
Star Wars is so iconic. So, Darth Vader has his own mannerisms. Jawas have their own mannerisms. How conscious are you when you're performing and acting that? Okay, Jawas have to act this way. Darth Vader, Big Trust, he acts this way. How conscious are you?
2 weeks before
go
I
ahead,
start stealing a bunch of shit. Like, as a Jawa, I just go around and just start taking people's things and just to warm up and
Lifting some wallets.
yeah, lifting some wallets and
I got my wallet here. Okay, cool.
yeah,
That's good.
some wheels and tires, pretending it's like spacecraft. But yeah,
That's great. I love it. I had to be very aware of it. I mean, even though I'd seen the movies, I don't know how many times by that point, I sat down and studied it. I watched what Dave Prowse did, the way he moved and everything. I watched Bob Anderson, how he did the lightsaber duels and everything. And I studied that and studied it because if you don't move like that, you're not going to ring true as Vader. And it's already been established. There's a certain way to do it. And now the guys that have come after me, they will say the same thing. They watched everything that came before them to get that movement, that character right, because audiences know. And if you come walking in all kind of like this, no, you're not Vader. Vader has a way of walking. There is something, though, I will say about the costume, that once you put it on, and you just catch a glimpse of yourself in a mirror, you don't think to yourself, hey, there I am in the Vader costume. You think, there's Darth Vader. Everything changes. Your whole physical attitude changes. And it's a very uncomfortable costume too. I have physical scars from wearing that costume. I won't show them to you, but let's just say the word chafing. But it's a very uncomfortable costume. But you put that in the performance, and you put that in the movement and everything. So you have to be aware of that. Yeah.
Is there a way to, because both of your characters, I mean, I'm going to assume, Kyle, you don't know Jawa. That a little bit, okay. But your characters don't speak with your voices, and being able to act, but not being able to use your voice as an actor.
For me, it was a lot of hand gestures and like movement, like translating the verbalness, I guess, to physical motion. For me.
Yeah. For me, it was different for me because we were doing something on camera. I would have to do the dialogue, especially for the Rebel Assault 2 game that we did, which had a half hour of motion, full motion video in it. It was actually the first live action Star Wars footage that had been shot since the 2 Ewok TV movies. And so I had to say all the dialogue because you have to have it for the timing for the other actors in the scene. And so I had to, even though I knew I was going to be dubbed over, I still had to do it, and I wanted to do it in a way that still, I mean, even though I'm not trying to do an impression of James Earl Jones, but there's something so that it was the same intonation and the same style, that so that the people on set wouldn't think, because you don't want to be on set going, hey, alert my Star Destroyer, and you want it to, you want them to you don't want to break character, so you're staying in character in that, so that for the other actors. So yeah.
Or let me ask you this: is it strange for you being at these cons and you see like a Funko Pop that's a Darth Vader or a Jawa, and you're like, all right, the pop culture has gone in such a direction that I'm an actual thing.
Yes.
Toy, yeah, it's definitely odd.
Yeah, it's weird. Now, there's probably, I know this for me, that there are probably action figures out there that probably have a photo of you on like the card now too, don't they?
Yes.
So it's not just here's a figure that's depicting me. Here's a photo of me next to the figure too that's on this card.
Yeah.
Isn't that freaky?
It is.
Yeah.
It is pretty wild to see. Yeah.
I'm on so much packaging, and still to this day they're still recycling these old photos. I shot hundreds and hundreds of publicity photos as Vader, and they're still using them here and there, and it's like, wow. It's still kind of like, oh my gosh, that's me.
Any other questions from the audience out there? This is a very shy group, I have to admit.
Come on, the front row is just putting you to shame.
Yep.
Okay,
All right.
back row there.
Playing Darth Vader, seeing all the animation and the movies and shows, what would be your favorite Vader fight scene?
My favorite what?
Fight scene.
Fight scene. Oh, okay. Well, it's got to be Empire Strikes Back when Vader, and of course that wasn't me, that was Bob Anderson, but the whole fight with Luke is just that to me is like the best fight scene in there, just because it's such a high dramatic moment, and then it ends with that whole no, I am your father. That's just a great moment in there. But that's a great fight scene. Bob Anderson was a master swordsman and stunt double, and he did all those complicated lightsaber duels with Mark Hamill to make sure that Mark looked really good. It's like having a good dance partner; they make you look good. And also, Bob Anderson later on choreographed what I think is the best sword fight in any movie ever, anywhere. And that was, he choreographed the scene in Princess Bride. I am not left-handed. It's a great thing. But yeah, that's my favorite scene. Yeah.
And I was going to ask about choreography and how much of that you guys...
There's been a great disturbance in the force here.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we blame Vader on that one. But, the amount of choreography you had to work with someone outside the costume to be able to be that character. And what you kind of, how much time did that take before you were even in the costume of just knowing how to walk, how to act, and that sort of thing?
I personally had more time doing that, training and going over everything, than actually being in it to shoot it, because you rehearse it so many times and they make adjustments and then to add or take away. So it was just not little tweaks, but sometimes for me personally, it was like changing completely. So we would do something for like 2 weeks even. And then because it wasn't just focused on me, there was usually, when I was doing a stunt scene, it involved other action as well with other people. So to me, there was so much rehearsing. It was wild. Even the one scene I did with as a bounty hunter when I get taken away in the jetpack, like that originally was 3 times the length. And then they just kept on butchering it and changing. And
was that for safety reasons, or were they just changing it for story?
I guess just for story. I don't know. Yeah, it's unfortunately after you shoot it, you don't really have a total idea, because I didn't get like the whole script, so I'm just kind of guessing, So and then when it comes out, it's like, wow, they really trimmed that down. But it's cool to see like experience it and then see the after effect for sure.
Oh yeah, like when we did the special edition, I knew who I was playing, obviously, and I knew that we were adding scenes, but you didn't know what was going to happen until you got on set.
Right.
And it's like, okay, we're going to be doing this. Okay, fine. So and then you'd have to go. But yeah, there was a lot of the stuff that I had to do choreography wise. I had to kind of do on my own. Fortunately, from my theater training, I knew how to swing a sword, so I could swing a lightsaber. But a lot of the stuff was just, I had to kind of, because I kind of slowly fell into the Vader role. It was originally just what I thought was going to be a one-time appearance as just a meet and greet. Long before the 501st Legion was around and was doing stuff for charity, Lucasfilm had me do something for Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, big meet and greet, have the kids take a photo with Darth Vader, and I thought that was a one and done. I thank God I had a chance to do it, but then they kept calling me back and calling me back and calling me back. So I would get deeper and deeper and deeper into Vader, and so it wasn't ever one of those things where it's like, okay, we need to sit you down with a coach and get you the mannerisms. I was having to do it on my own, and then they realized, oh, okay, well, he knows what he's doing. Let's just keep it going. So.
Well, we are out of time this afternoon. Let's give a hand for Kyle. Let's give a hand for Andrew.
Yeah, come on up to the upper deck. We're both up there,
Yeah.
right near each other.
You can talk a little Star Wars upstairs, and we will be talking figurines in about 5-10 minutes.
Cool.
And if maybe you have some figurines that either Kyle or
That's right.
Andrew could sign for you too.
Yeah.
There you go.